Luvvie, and as he said, I'm all these things. I am a wacky wordsmith. I'm a bodacious blogger. I am a dynamic digitality, side-eye sorceress. My superpower is my side-eye. But I'm standing here because I am a 12-year overnight success. Oh, man. So in 2003, the internet looked very different from what it does now. This was Yahoo's website. This was MySpace. This was the New York Times website. This was eBay. This is what Google looked like. 2003 was different. And that's the year that I started blogging. I was a freshman in college, and back then, blogging was called webblogging. And everyone used blogs as very public, very boring diaries. You would think everyone cared about everyone's issues to the point where we wanted to talk about it every single day. And in that year, my friends actually peer pressured me to start in a blog. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll start a weblog, whatever that is. So I went to Xanga.com. Does anyone remember Xanga? Yes. I went on Xanga.com and I started a very emo and I still think it's very boring, website called Consider This the Letter I Never Sent. I clearly took myself too serious. That is the title, really? And this blog really just covered my life as an undergrad and relationships and whether my roommate sucked that day. It was the boring undergrad college blog. But it started me on a journey that changed my life that I would never have expected, because this really kind of changed my path. So that year, 2003, was also the first year I got a D in my whole academic career. I was a psychology pre-med major. This D was in chemistry. So when that happened, I was like, I don't even like hospitals. So me becoming a doctor is probably unrealistic. I should probably drop that. So I dropped the pre-med, but I was still psychology. And all through college, I kept on blogging. So when I graduated in 2006, I was like, I've overgrown Xanga. I think I'm moving on to somewhere else. Remember when we all loved glitter? Like everything was glitter on the line? Yeah, I totally was there for all of that. I had all that on my website. So when I graduated, I moved to a new platform. Blogspot was big then too. And I was like, well, no more undergrad, what am I writing about? I started writing about pop culture. I started writing about what I thought about celebrities and TV. I have strong opinions about everything. So I started sharing more of that than my personal life. And people started reading. My friends would comment, and at that point, Facebook was 2 years old. So I started sharing my notes on Facebook. And before I started noticing, people whose names I didn't know would comment on my blog. And I was like, oh, people are paying attention. At this point, I'm 3 years into blogging, still wasn't taking it serious, but I was still spending a lot of time creating these posts and actually maintaining a blog. So once a week became twice a week. 2 comments became 20. And then 2009, 3 more years has passed by, I'm still blogging. At this point, I am a full-time marketing coordinator for a nonprofit. Because my background is in digital marketing, and I was still working 9 to 5. I would come home at night and blog after maybe from 7 to 9. I'm still dedicating time, but keep in mind, getting paid $0. Right? So this was a passion and this was a hobby that was still bringing me zero money. But 2009 also changed things for me because that year I won my first blogging award. It was the Black Web Blog Awards Best Humor Blog. I didn't even think my blog was popular at that point. Because I was just writing. I'm like, oh, my friends find this funny, cool. So when I won this award, I was like, whoa, people are actually reading more than I thought. Okay. And then that year, another thing happened that was significant. I started a nonprofit organization. A friend of mine and I, Karyn Watkins, we actually both really care about HIV and AIDS because we know people who have been infected and affected by the epidemic. So we were both blogging at this time also as hobbies. And our idea was to get our blogger friends to talk about HIV and AIDS on March 10th, which is National Women and Girls HIV and AIDS Awareness Day. And we sent this email to like 25, 30 of our blogger friends. On March 10th, 135 bloggers ended up joining us. We thought nothing of it, did not expect this number. So it was really interesting when afterwards everyone's like, so what's next? Well, the Red Pump Project became a national nonprofit organization. So that year kind of changed the tone of everything I was doing, because although I was still working a 9 to 5, this blogging thing was actually getting big for me. And things started happening. So I was like, oh my gosh, I think I want to invest more time. So I started blogging more. And then early 2010 came. I got laid off my job. I was like, the universe was pushing me to take the leap of faith I was petrified to take. Because I enjoy getting a paycheck every 2 weeks. I do, and insurance. That's fantastic. But when I got laid off, I was like, well, maybe it's time to make this whole blogging thing profitable. Because I clearly love it. And I've stuck with it for 6 years. And I'm clearly not going to stop anytime soon. I might as well do something with it. So, the thing about blogging, though, at that point is, had I depended on blogging to like keep me above water, I would be like the young lady living in her shoes, because that would be all I have to my name. What kept me afloat at that point was the fact that I was doing digital strategy for clients and small businesses. So that kind of kept me from being homeless and, you know, an actual adult that can pay attention to what I'm doing and pay my bills. But this blogging thing that I was doing, why was I doing it? Why did I go through what I was going through? Because when I didn't write, the words would be coming at me in my sleep. Have you ever dreamt about words? I do. It's really weird. I was like, why did I wake up with paragraphs in my head? That's why I kept blogging, because it was something that I loved. It was something that I was passionate about, and I was actually good at it. So that was fantastic. What wasn't fantastic was this struggle, this financial struggle that came with trying to create a career out of digital space, when at this point, there were very few professional bloggers. So I was one of the digital guinea pigs, one of the people who was doing it before it was popular, before it was cool, before bloggers ended up on television. So trying to make fetch happen, I did. I tried to make blogging fetch happen. So from April 2010, self-employed. I actually feel like I was underemployed because my bank balance looked underemployed. And anyone who gets into blogging or any type of creative craft for the idea that they will get rich will quit, first of all, before you even get your first paycheck or your first PayPal deposit, because this is not the job that's going to bring you all the money immediately. So you have to stick with it. And part of that is just like, there'll be months where I'll get like a $15 check. And I was like, how am I supposed to pay my rent with $15? And there'll be months when I'll get a big check and I'm like, well, this might last me for 4 months because this might be the last piece of money I get. So having to live below my means. But again, I wasn't quitting. And every time I would want to quit, something would happen that's like, no, not quite yet. I promise I used to be on LinkedIn every week, like I think I should get a new job, like an actual job. So my mom could stop giving me side eye. Like, she thought I was playing behind the internet. I was like, let me get on LinkedIn. But every single time I would want to do that, something would stop me. I would get an email from a reader of mine, and they'll say, hey, I love your blog. You are the reason I didn't cry when I was sitting with my mother as she was getting chemotherapy. You know, you are the reason why I laughed for the first time in 6 months that I was going through a depressive episode. I'd get these letters just in time, and it would push me forward, and it'll let me know that what I'm doing is more significant than what I'm going through, that my struggles, whatever they're looking like, I'm supposed to be doing what I'm doing because I was standing in my purpose. And I promise every single time I would want to just apply for a job, I would get an email like this. So I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to the voices that are not whispers. Finally, August 2011, my blog started getting legs. People started noticing my site. And I am in a space where a lot of people aren't in. A lot of bloggers are fashion bloggers, beauty bloggers, there's gossip bloggers. I'm in the intersection of all of that. So people didn't pay attention to me. Well, individuals paid attention to me, but the people who had money weren't paying attention. Until like 2011. Finally, brands started seeing what I was doing, and they started paying attention and like, okay, she actually has a voice that people are listening to. 8 years after I started blogging. It was 8 years after I was like, okay, cool, let's see what this blogging thing is about. So for me to just have stopped struggling and scratching at the wall to stay afloat, it took 8 years of sticking with it. But I also think part of what got me there is I made a very conscious effort to start pushing through the need for perfection. I feel like we always push for perfection, and we feel like we are not enough. We stop ourselves from doing things we want to do. We stop ourselves from starting businesses because we feel like we are currently not in the space for it. We stop ourselves from creating Twitter accounts because we don't know what to tweet. We stop ourselves from pursuing passions and hindering our lives because we think that if we can't do it flawlessly, we shouldn't do it at all. I used to stop myself from writing posts about things I really care about because I'd say, I don't know if I have the exact right words to do to actually post this and press publish. Around 2011, I started pushing past that because I'm like, you know what? You expecting brilliance from yourself all the time is not fair. That's first of all, because you're not allowing yourself room for mistake. And without that room, you won't grow. So I actually stopped doing that. I was like, you know what? If all I have to say is 200 words about this one thing that happened, post it anyway. And people started listening. There was a long time there where I actually didn't blog more than twice a week because I thought people would get tired of hearing my voice. 2011, I stopped doing that. I was like, you know what? Whenever you want to write anything, post it up. It doesn't matter. And I started seeing good things coming from it because I was taking more risks. I want us to always push to perfection. And I really do think that is what allowed me to break through whatever wall I had hit before. That push for perfection. But ultimately, the grind, behind the glory of anything you do, behind any great rewards you get, people sometimes don't see your struggle and your grind. They don't see the 16 hours behind a computer screen every day. They don't see you having to get new glasses because your old ones don't work anymore. They don't see the 4 to 5 days a week where you're in ragged pajamas before you get to that cool event everyone's Instagramming. Awesome event, but the 4 days beforehand, it was just you and the computer screen. Because you need to do the grind to get to the glamour, to get to the glory. And I had done that for a long time, and I still continue to do that. The great thing is, I've been afforded many opportunities because of my blog that I didn't even understand were possible. My blog has opened some doors that I didn't even know existed. So it's something interesting to be like, I want to do that. A lot of the things I've done, I've never actively pursued them because I didn't even know they were possible for me to do. You know, writing on the TV set in LA and seeing this TV show come to life, never thought that was an option for me. Because again, I was supposed to be a psychologist here. But I also don't like hospitals, remember that. But I think ultimately for my journey to whatever success looks like has been about sticking through the pain and through the ugly and through the messy parts to get to the beautiful parts. I think I also have pushed forward because I've pushed through the tough times. I've pushed through times when it hasn't been convenient. I'm the person that is a presence because I've always been there. So people had to start paying attention. I was in Kenya a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and I still had to write a scandal recap. So I'm kind of known for my scandal recaps. I'm obsessed with that show. Like I can break stuff down by color. It's a problem. My scandal recaps take me 3.5 hours to write every week. 3.5 hours for a 1 hour show. But this recap has actually elevated me, and people expect me to always have these recaps. So I'm in Kenya. Kenya's 8 hours ahead of Chicago. Scandal came on. I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning as my friends are still sleeping. And I watched Scandal, and I spent 4 hours writing this recap. They were gonna leave me to go watch some elephants, and I was like, you know what, go do that, come back. They're like, no, we'll wait. But it's doing things like that that has actually allowed me to stand here, because people were like, we didn't even expect you to have your scandal recap up, but I did, because it's what is expected of me. And I loved doing what I do. I love doing what I do. So it's also a privilege of mine. And my success, if you define success as someone who is living life on their own terms, who has lived life on her own terms, is enjoying what she's doing, is honored to be doing it, then yes, I am definitely a success in that way. But I also have to always remember the journey that got me here. My nonprofit is now in 6 different cities with teams of women who are helping us raise awareness about the impact of HIV and AIDS in women and girls. My blog has gotten me to meet Lupita Nyong'o, and she knew who I was. I could have passed out on the spot. Oh God, that is a gift. The fact that I did not just like melt. Shonda Rhimes knew who I was and was like, I love you, I love what you're doing, your tweets, also crazy. And then when I was in Kenya, one thing that I had a meetup with people who've been reading my blog for years, a meetup of 100 people. And one of them even had a t-shirt that says, unable to can. Like, you actually have one of my t-shirts. So that was a powerful thing. I would say I've been privileged to put a lot of work behind everything I've done, but I've also been rewarded because of it. For me, blogging is like a party that everyone came to, right? I came early, I saw everybody else come, I stayed through it, and then when most of them left, I stayed and helped you clean up, and then you gave me cake. I feel like my success is the little cake, because if you stay, if you pitch a text on someone's lawn long enough, they might invite you in for dinner or call the police for stalking. So I'm that person. I'm a 12-year overnight success, and I am standing here not necessarily because I was the best, or the funniest, or the brightest. I'm standing here because I'm one of the ones who stuck through it. I am one of the ones who's like, I am staying, like Effie White from Dreamgirls. You gonna love me? So ultimately, success in anything, blogging or otherwise, is about, it's not a marathon. I mean, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So you basically have to tie your shoelaces and get ready for the long haul. You have to stick through the ugly, stick through the things that are not cute, even when your feet are blistering and it is not sexy. You have to be the person who charges forward. So then when you are there at the end of the finish line, people are like, well, you know what? At the minimum, I respect what you're doing because you have stuck with it. So thank you for sticking with me. It's been a great day.